Hi, welcome to Flicks Minute. Today I will tell you about an action comedy movie called The Other Guys. Let's enjoy it. The movie starts with a criminal chase carried out by Danson and Highsmith. They are the best detectives in New York. When Danson lingered on the roof of the criminal's car, they opened fire, forcing him to jump into his partner's car. The criminal continued shooting, causing the hood of the detective's car to open to cover the windshield as a truck dumped its luggage in the middle of the road. I'm not sure, but it looks like it's a wooden drink box. Once they reach the intersection, they get rid of the hood, but it's too late. Their car runs over a pile of wood and flies off, and then lands on the tour bus. No casualties. Danson took over the wheel of the bus and continued the chase, but the criminal had gotten out of the car and greeted the detectives with gunfire. Danson quickly drifted, throwing Highsmith's car at the criminals, which ended in a great explosion. After successfully catching the criminals, the two detectives held a press conference that revealed how high their reputation was in the eyes of the public. They returned to the police station to thank their colleagues for their help and invited them all to celebrate together. The two of them would be treated. Since they don't like doing their paperwork, Captain Gene entrusts the job to Detective Allen, a forensic accountant who partners with Detective Terry, the angry one. Terry didn't like seeing Allen taking so much pleasure in doing boring work, so he scolded him, then left. But then he comes back only to express his hatred and threaten him with an analogy. He describes himself as a lion while Allen is a tuna. Still, Terry lost his speech because it didn't make sense that a lion would have to force itself to swim into the ocean just to eat an 800-pound tuna. A news broadcast was highlighting moments before the market opening by Landell Global CEO Pamela, who was accompanied by her business partner David, an investment banker. The man managed 40% of the equity of Landell's $70 billion corporation, but now he's informed that they've just lost $32 billion. Pamela is very annoyed here while pressing the market opening button. Okay, back to the police department, where we see several officers attending counseling for those who fired their guns in the line of duty. Terry was among them, and he admitted that he couldn't forget his mistake in the past when he accidentally shot a famous baseball player in the leg. His name was tarnished after that incident, so he was the last number when there was a case and was partnered with Allen. Martin and Fosse approached Allen, who was handling an illegal construction permit case. They asked him to do the shooting in the office since every officer had done it before, and they called it the desk pop. As he does, everyone goes down and Terry comes in at gunpoint. This is scary because it turns out Martin and Fosse have been fooling him for their fun, resulting in the captain punishing Allen by confiscating his gun. He replaced it with a wooden gun, which was usually used for ceremonies. The captain has another job, namely as a manager in a retail shop, and he can do both jobs well. So now he's asking the two officers to, don't be stupid. A group of robbers managed to steal a jewelry shop. Danson and Highsmith immediately came to secure the location, but their car was hit by a wrecking ball, giving the robbers an opportunity to escape into a building. The detectives chase them up to the roof, but they are professional robbers who make it down to the street on a zipline. Not at their wits' end, the detectives without hesitation jumped from the 20th floor to aim the bus. But somehow they failed. No bus came. Their funerals were solemn, but their departure left many questions for their colleagues. Terry knew his chance to advance had come, so he whispered to Allen to prepare themselves, as did Martin and Fosse. After the funeral, the officers gather at the police station to share their condolences while Martin and Fosse mock Terry and Allen for their stupidity. When Fosse challenges Allen, Terry defends him, resulting in a fight between him and Martin. They fought while maintaining politeness, not being noisy and orderly, until the captain came to stop them. The next day at the police station, the dispatcher reported that there was a shootout at a place with a lot of narcotics there. Martin and Fosse immediately rushed to the location and asked other officers to be on standby. Terry wanted to get involved in handling the case, but his partner had never worked in a crime scene, so Terry had to point him at gunpoint to get him to join in. He informed Fosse about his joining, making the man angry, and the two teams immediately raced to arrive at the location. Enthusiastic Allen drives his car too fast, so he and Terry get there first but mess everything up. As a result, Fosse and Martin took over the crime scene. David was giving a talk in a hall where he emphasized to investors that living excessively is important as a motivation to profit forever. After the seminar, Pamela informs David that her head of security, Roger, will be watching over him until the release of Landell quarterlies, which will take place in the near future. She lost trust in him after Landell Global suffered huge losses. It was about $32 billion. Now their business is ruined, and Pamela demands the man to compensate her for her losses. David didn't like being watched all the time, so he ran away from Roger's supervision. In the car, Allen told Terry that he was working on a big case, the illegal construction permit that Alan talked about earlier. He forces him to come with him, and Terry has no choice but to agree. They arrived at the Plaza Hotel where David was holding a seminar. As they entered through the kitchen door, they unexpectedly met David, who was trying to escape. Alan quickly caught him and then hurriedly drove his car to the police station. When he got into an argument with Terry, Roger crashed their car at an intersection, searched them, then took David and their car as well. Now they have to walk to the station, because the squads won't pick them up just because they lost their shoes. Alan felt that Terry always made fun of him even though they were partners, so he asked him to make up and start anew so they could handle the case properly. When they arrive at the police station, the captain introduces them to David's lawyer, Beeman, and the private security, Roger. They purposely came to fix the scaffolding permit situation, so the case is now closed. And Roger, he apologized for his aggressive actions because he thought the officers had kidnapped David. News of the mistakenly arrest was broadcast with speculation about the victim's financial profile. It's clear Alan and Terry are upset because they're just doing their jobs, and here Terry suspects that Roger isn't David's security team. That night, Terry discussed David's case at Alan's house and learned that David was the CEO of Urshan Consortium with financial investments exceeding $70 billion, and one of his clients was Lendl Global. David is connected to many people such as judges and singers, making Terry speculate that he is also connected to criminal business. A woman came to greet Terry and introduced herself, Sheila, Alan's wife. Terry was surprised by her because he couldn't believe Alan had a wife as beautiful as Sheila. During dinner, Terry didn't take his attention off Sheila. He seemed to fall in love with her. Terry actually had a girlfriend and they should have been married by now, but their relationship wasn't going well since he was too focused on his work. The next day, Alan found his car being investigated by the police after being taken away by Roger earlier. The car was left under the overpass, so it was used by homeless to party in it. Police found many things there, including Alan's cell phone. When he checked his phone, there was a phone call 2 minutes after Roger took David in his car. The call could have recorded the conversation when David was arrested, so they had to hear it from the other side. The problem is, the number dialed belongs to Alan's ex, who he dumped in the past, but they still seeing her anyway. Her name is Christineth and she already has a husband, but she doesn't hesitate to talk about her past with Alan in front of her husband. Alan was able to control the situation well, and he immediately revealed the purpose of his arrival as a police officer. Christineth immediately took Alan to the kitchen, then beat him for the revenge she had held for 13 years. Alan didn't fight back, but as he got her phone, he immediately asked Terry to run away. They pull over on a quiet road to check the voice recording. At this point, they find out that Roger actually kidnapped David. Shortly after, Christineth and her husband came to disrupt the situation, forcing them to escape again. They stop at a bar where they discover new facts. David apparently used $32 billion worth of lottery money to cover his losses, and that's state money. Before reporting to the captain, Alan invites Terry to investigate David's paper trail at an accounting firm in New Jersey. But first, Terry goes to see his girlfriend Francine to tell her he still loves her. Unfortunately, the lady was in the mood to dance, so she just asked him to leave. At the following day, Alan and Terry arrived at the accountant's office to continue their investigation. As they step closer to the office, the bomb explodes. Someone set them up, and they are Roger's men. A moment later, police and medical personnel arrive to secure the explosion site. Alan complains that he's tired of everything and wants to go back to his desk. Terry knew that Alan had been hiding something from him, so he asked him to share it with him. Alan said that when he was in college, he was a bodyguard for 14 lady entertainers and received a bunch percentage from them. Or you could say that the money is more than enough to pay for his tuition. But one day, he looked at himself in the mirror and realized that he had lost control. He hated himself at that time. One night, he was taken to the emergency room because he was in critical condition, and that's where he met Sheila. A woman he met for the first time was able to make him determined to change. This was a really good point, at least for him. The next day, the two detectives met David in his office to talk. But David seemed to be avoiding them, so he gave them free tickets to watch basketball and a concert. When the two of them realized they were being bribed, they returned to David's office and whispered to each other about playing good cop and bad cop. Terry starts the game, angrily asking David about how he covers his losses and what drug business he is working on. However, David didn't like talking to him and appointed Alan instead. But Alan lost control and ruffled the entire room. Their plan fails, but Terry gets the call history paper to the lottery office from the CEO's desk. Unfortunately, Roger and his team suddenly came and electrocuted them until they became unconscious. Once they regained consciousness, they were on a freight train bound for Las Vegas. They then contacted the captain and reported their assumptions about David. The captain had told them from the start that David's case was closed, so he ignored them. Hey, before we continue the story, I will show you a trick. Look at the bottom of the screen. Subscribe. They returned to the police station and were introduced to DA Radford by the captain. The DA deliberately came to tell the detectives to stop their investigation into David. After he left, the captain ordered that they should next submit all the evidence they had to the SEC. That night, Terry visits Francine, who is showing her art at a gallery. He wanted to tell her that he loved her very much. The woman couldn't stand him anymore, so she decided to end their unclear relationship that very night. Simultaneously, Alan was kicked out by his wife because he questioned the father of the baby she was carrying. The next day, Alan and Terry went to the SEC to obey the captain's orders. To their surprise, they find out that Beeman works there. Beeman promised to resign if what they were doing was a real investigation. After a bit of arguing, the detectives finally handed over the evidence to him. One day, Beeman was seen standing at his office window trying to become a jumper. He kept mentioning Roger and David's names as if he knew something about them. Alan and Terry came to calm him down but failed. The man jumped. While the detectives were carrying out their investigation, the captain suddenly intervened. He told them that the reason David had repeatedly called the lottery office was because he was in a relationship with a woman who worked there. As a result, the captain transferred Terry into traffic in return. He thought Terry made too many mistakes. Terry and Alan angrily left the building. Since they were no longer partners, Terry decided to go alone, leaving Alan, who still wanted to investigate David. The following day, it turns out that Terry can do his job well, while Alan, he does what he has to do, investigate David. Terry was appreciated for his outstanding service in October, and Alan finally got his gun back. One night, Alan visits Terry at his apartment, telling him that David is trying to cover up Lendl Global's losses. They staged a jewelry robbery as a diversion so they could break into their own accounting firm next door. Then they changed all the records to cover the losses David made through his bad investments. Terry knew that this is bad, so he has to decline Alan's offer to join in solving the case. The next day, Alan met the captain at his store to find out more information about David. A short time later, Terry decided to join Alan in order to maintain the partner code. The captain shared that the CEO was connected to all the higher-ups, so he was forced to avoid the case to save himself. He asks them to remain quiet and insists that real evidence must be a priority so he can help. If things got messy, the captain asked them not to involve him. In a meeting at the Lendl Global Corporation, David boasted of a plan to replace their money with a police pension fund worth $32 billion. But before the CEO could transfer the money, Alan and Terry came to pause the situation. The detectives arrested him, but Roger knew they had come without a warrant, so he raised his gun intending to fight. A shootout broke out between Terry and Roger's team, luring everyone involved into shooting. Alan ran to protect David from flying bullets, guiding him out of the room, putting them in safety. Terry, who was caught between the many cruel eyes aiming him, immediately launched his body onto a flat object and then ran towards Alan. They then took David to their car, but two of Roger's friends wanted to join in, so a fight was inevitable. At this moment, the dispatcher announces that Alan and Terry are bad men who must be arrested. Terry easily divided his focus between driving and hitting the guys. Soon someone sits on Alan's face, but Alan bites him. Then Terry pushes him out of the way and Alan pushes another one. They decide to hide out in David's apartment, where he admits he has lost a bunch of investors' money and now they want it back. Beeman knows that David has been falsifying his finances, so Lendl sends Roger to keep him quiet. As we know, what happened was that he decided to jump from the building to end his life. Alan is convinced that at least he and Terry had failed him in getting the police pension fund. But David denied it because the money was already in his account. It's only a matter of time until the money is transferred to the Lendl Global account and then distributed to many accounts abroad. The only way to stop the transfer process is for them to be at the endemic bank at the specified time, but for now they have to remain hidden from Roger. Still, they didn't know what would happen next, so the detectives decided to meet their respective partners. Terry takes Francine out to dinner, while Alan gets romantic with Sheila. The next day, the three men arrived at the endemic bank and asked the bank employee not to transfer the money. However, Roger and his team intervened and ordered the bank employee to do the opposite. Feeling threatened and outnumbered, Terry beats Roger's three friends and takes David as a hostage. However, Roger shot the three of them down and repeated his orders to the bank employee. A moment later, troops came to surround the location and Roger was arrested. 24 hours after learning of David's fraud and Lendl Global's massive losses, the government released TARP funds to save Lendl. David is imprisoned at the Palomini Federal Correctional Facility in Florida. He still likes investing, but this time with a different currency. Roger is linked to Beeman's murder by security camera footage found by Martin and Fossey. Terry finally shows the seriousness of his love by marrying Francine. Alan and Sheila are there. A few days later, the man Terry had shot met with the detectives to give them a document. The man tells them that the case they solved is not over yet. A man named Carl, the CEO of Killister Bank, had taken $3 billion from the TARP funds. The man asked the detective to be careful because Carl was a very cunning man. The two then enter Alan's new car, and this is where the movie ends. Share your thoughts about this movie in the comments so we can discuss about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for further video updates. Thank you for watching.